Today our topic for discussion would be like stored procedures and UDF. Okay, so we are going to discuss about the stored procedures and use the UDF. UDF is known as a user defined function. So let us understand why we need to write the stored procedures and why we need to write the UDFs and when exactly we need to go for the stored procedures and when exactly we need to write the user defined functions. Okay. So if you can see in notice in SQL language, we don't have an opportunity to write the procedural logic. Procedural logic means implementing the branching and looping. So if you want to implement, if there is a requirement to implement branching and looping, we have the requirement to implement the branching and looping, right? Then we will write the stored procedures. We need to understand who majority of the people might be aware what you mean by branching and looping. Let me explain you. Branching means if you want to use any kind of conditions like if else while if you want to use the conditions like if else and while do while if you want any kind of these are the procedural logic. If you want to implement and incorporate this logic into SQL, then we need to go for the stored procedures and we can implement procedural logic using the stored procedures. Similarly, we can implement the looping as well. Looping means in the sense if you want to write any of the loops like for loop, then we need to use the procedural logic. Okay, so if there is a requirement to use the branching and looping, then we will write the stored procedure. And one more important thing to understand is in which language you can write the stored procedure. Here in Snowflake, either if you want to write the stored procedure or user defined function, Snowflake supports 5 different types of languages that can be written. These 5 different types of languages are, you can write your stored procedures in Java or either JavaScript. You can write either in Python, Scala. You can write either in Python, even you can write in the Scala as well. And finally, you can write in the Snowflake scripting. We have a concept like Snowflake scripting, you can write in the Snowflake scripting as well. Okay. So if you want to write the stored procedures, you need to have a knowledge on any of these five languages. Either you need to familiar with Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala, and Snowflake scripting. Okay, these days majority of the people have started using the Python. Earlier it was like Java, I used it to write into Java, but considering the processing over the Databricks processing and implementing the PySpark language, everyone was moving to write the stored procedures and user defined functions in Python. So in parallel, if you want to get expertise in writing the stored procedures and the user defined functions, you need to along with the SQL, you need to be familiar in the concepts like Snowflake, and you need to learn any of the language which was mentioned here if you want to become the professional in writing the stored procedures and user defined functions. Okay, hope everyone is able to understand, right? Why we will go for stored procedures means in the structured query language, we cannot implement the concepts branching and looping. We cannot write the any of the queries using the if else. So we need to go for the stored procedures to implement the procedural logic, procedural code implementing the branching and looping. In which languages we are going to write the stored procedures means you can write in these 5 languages. Either you can write in Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala, Snowflake scripting. If you want to be professional, you need to gain knowledge and you need to be familiar in the what are the supported variables if you are writing in JavaScript, you need to understand what are the supported data types and how you can make the data types compatible between the Snowflake and JavaScript. So you need to have a knowledge on SQL along with the Snowflake knowledge along with the any of one language in which you are going to write the stored procedures or user defined functions. Okay. Hope everyone is able to follow me. Any doubts so far? What do you mean by a branching and looping and what are the supported languages to write the stored procedures? Okay. Hope everyone is able to understand and follow me. Now, any doubts? If notes, let's move on to the, let's understand when we will write the stored procedures and when we will write the user defined functions. So user defined functions are generally written only when if it is going to perform certain calculations and if it returns certain value. If you want to perform certain calculations and you notice that all the built-in functions which are available in Snowflake will not support our requirement, or though it may support, it's not feasible or good to use in our requirement, then we will try to write our own function which will take certain input and process input and it will return certain value. Functions explicitly always must return something. You need to remember one thing. If you are going to write any function, it will take input, it will process the input and definitely must return something. Okay, it is going to, then we are going to use the user defined functions. Whereas the stored procedures are written only, usually the main purpose of writing the stored procedures is to perform certain DML operations or DDL operations. In case of, if there is a requirement to perform any of the administrative work, then we will write the stored procedures. If you want to perform any calculations and return value, then we will go for the user defined function. User defined function compulsorily must and should, it must return certain values, it must return something. Whereas stored procedures, it is optional, either it could return or it may not return. If it doesn't return anything, it will return as a null. Okay, that is the difference between the user defined functions and stored procedures. Stored procedures are, the main purpose of writing the stored procedure or usage of the stored procedures is to perform the administrative task, either to perform the DML and DDL operations. Whereas the user defined functions, it is to perform certain calculations, and return certain value. It will definitely, function will definitely must have a return, must have a compulsory return. Whereas in case of stored procedures, return is optional. Okay, and let us see few more differences between these stored procedures and user defined functions. Okay, see, in case of user defined functions, if you notice this, the main purpose of the user defined function is to calculate and return a value. Let us consider an example as a factorial. If you want to calculate factorial of any number, then we will use the user defined functions but not a stored procedures. If you want to execute certain group of SQL statements, or if you want to perform any of the administrative tasks like executing the DMLs and few DDLs, then we will go with the stored procedures. Okay, that is the one major difference where you are going to, when you are going to write the UDF means, if you are going to write the UDF, only the purpose is to calculate and return certain value. If you want to perform any kind of administrative task, then we will go for the stored procedures. And whereas the UDF will always return a value explicitly. If it cannot avoid returning anything, definitely function must return something. It takes certain inputs, process it, and definitely it must return certain value. Whereas in stored procedures, the return might not be mandatory or compulsory. If it doesn't return, it may return null. Okay, so again, in how we are going to call, whereas the stored procedures can be called independently, means that directly we can use the call and you can provide the stored procedure name which we have provided. Directly it can be called independently without using any statement, without using any select query or any statement. Whereas UDF function, we are going to call explicitly with the select command. These are the differences, major differences between the stored procedures and user defined functions. One key takeaway here you need to take away is user defined functions are only utilized when we are going to process any numerical values. It takes certain new inputs and it processes it and return value. If you want to perform any of the administrative tasks, then we need to go for the stored procedure. That is a major difference between the stored procedures and UDF. Okay, hope everyone is able to understand stored procedures and user defined functions. Both the stored procedures and user defined functions can be written in 5 different languages. One is going to be a Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala, and Snowflake scripting or SQL. Moreover, it contains the lot of SQL commands only. But usually, my suggestion and recommendation is you start learning with the Python. It will help you to learn the PySpark. It will help you it will help you to lay the strong foundations and to learn the PySpark. along with the Databricks. Databricks is going to be a different engineering path where you will have a lot of expertise. You can see in these days it's competing with the Snowflake as well, and it is going to have a huge openings in the near future. Databricks and PySpark competitions. Okay, try to start learning a Python as well to implement the better store procedures. Automatically, it will lay a foundation to learn the PySpark and Databricks. Okay. So far, any doubts here? Okay. If there is no doubts, let's continue on looking out some examples.
A small doubt, like if you want to learn Python, right?
Yes, yes.
So what is it, like where we are going to use the Python Spark, PySpark on Databricks?
PySpark and Databricks actually it's a different data engineering stream. We are currently in we are learning the Snowflake, right?
Yeah.
Snowflake, the foundation is going to be a SQL for Snowflake. Okay. Similarly,
So,
for Databricks, if you want to work in the Databricks data engineering environment, this is going to be a different stream. Snowflake and Databricks is a two different data engineering paths. Okay. So if you want to learn, if you learn the Python, you can learn. It will lay a foundation
okay.
for PySpark, and you can utilize this PySpark in Databricks. Okay.
So it's optional, right? For it's optional. I think it's
It's
optional
optional
to
actually. Yeah, it's
learn, or
optional.
it's compulsory.
Yeah, it's optional if you want to move into a Databricks path. But if you want to, if your project requirement is to
Okay.
write the stored procedures in Python, then you need to learn Python definitely to write the stored procedures in Snowflake. In Snowflake, stored
Yeah.
procedures can
Yesterday,
be
yesterday, yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
In Snowflake, stored procedures can be written in any of the language, either Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala, Snowflake scripting. Snowflake scripting, moreover, similar to SQL. Okay. So majority of the people now the majority of the people now they are writing either in the SQL or Java. So going, I mean to say, over a period of time, lot of people will be migrating and moving towards the writing the code in Python. Python, writing the stored procedures in Python. Okay. If you start learning Python now, it will give you advantage to learn the PySpark. Why? Because PySpark is a combination of Python Spark. Okay. Python writing the Spark language in Python. Okay. It will give a foundation to learn the Databricks. It is a Snowflake
Mhm.
and Databricks is going to be a different data engineering environment. The people who are working with a Snowflake will have a different skill set. People who are working in Databricks will have a different skill set. Okay. If you want to have a both skill set, then first start learning Python, then look into PySpark and move to Databricks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, yesterday one of them asked for me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you have it? I asked you, right?
Yes, yes, yes. I
PySpark.
said the same, right? Actually, Snowflake and data
Yeah.
PySpark is going to be different paths.
Okay.
Yeah. Very rarely you can see the combination of the people who are working both in Databricks and Snowflake. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what about the you need to have a knowledge in any of one language to write in the stored procedures. Okay. Let us see few practical examples how we are going to create the stored procedures. Just I'm creating one database to SP UDF as one database with the database name. I'm going to create one schema as SP. So this is how the syntax looks like for creating the stored procedures. Okay. Just as a table here we are going to create. Just we are using the syntax similar to the table create or replace procedure, and we are going to provide the procedure name, and we are going to mention the returns. Return as a keyword. This stored procedure will return a here I am going to return a string. What is the language that I am writing in the stored procedure? Here we can write in a multiple five different languages, right? Here I am using the JavaScript as a language, and then I am writing this stored procedure. After you may notice as a keyword after as this is the between $2 symbols we need to write all our procedural logic. All our procedural logic for the stored procedures will be written between these $2. Okay, let me execute this stored procedure. Just I'm doing nothing here, just I'm trying to return hello world using the JavaScript language. Okay, if I call my stored procedure now, automatically hello world must be printed. So if you write the stored procedure once, you can use it multiple times based on your requirement. This is the simple stored procedures to start with without any parameter. Just the syntax is create or replace. We are going to give the procedure and procedure name. And you are going to specify the returns. What is the return that you are going to get? Either return is going to be varchar table or anything that you are going to specify the return. Here I am specifying the return as a string and I am specifying the language as a JavaScript. Then I am going to write my logic between the $2. Okay. If I call the how many times if I call the stored procedure, it will execute the same stored procedure which was written. It's more like a similar to methods. If you are working and if someone have a knowledge on Python, you are going to define the methods, right? You will create a methods and we will utilize wherever the method is getting required. Same in terms of C and Java as well as. Okay. Let us write one. Let us see another example for another stored procedure with one parameter. Here I am going to pass one parameter. The parameter type is going to be a varchar. Okay, so here I am going to return the same string. I'm going to write this line in the JavaScript language. So here what I'm trying to do is whatever the value that I pass here in as a parameter, that will get appended here and it will return and it will give back as an output. Let us execute this. Calling stored procedures is independent. We no need to require, you no need to write any kind of select statement. Just I'm calling the stored with the command with the keyword call. Just I'm calling the stored procedure greet. Just I'm executing it. So whatever the value that you pass as a parameter, it will take this parameter and it will append to the hello and it will generate us out. Okay, this is how this is going to be a stored procedure with one parameter using the JavaScript. I haven't implemented any of the logic here. If you notice, here we don't have any of the logic. Let us see few more examples. Here my requirement is to concatenate few strings. I pass the three different inputs. I am going to pass three varchar as a three strings, and the requirement is to concatenate. If you see here, this is used to concatenate in SQL. I'm writing this. I'm writing this procedure in a SQL language. So the syntax is going to be create or replace procedure, and this is going to be a procedure name. Here we are going to give the arguments. What are the different parameters or arguments that we are going to pass? String 1, string 2, string 3. I am going to pass three different strings as an input, and all the data type for these strings is going to be a varchar. What I am trying to do is, after passing, I am expecting a return of varchar. I am expecting from this entire procedure, I am expecting the return type varchar. And I am going to write this stored procedure in the language SQL. Just after as I'm going to begin my stored procedure logic, I'm going to implement entire my stored procedure logic here. Okay, declare, begin, end, and the three we have a three different blocks: declare, begin, and end. In the declare, exception and end as well. In the declare section, we are going to write, we can define or declare all the variables, whereas in the begin, after begin, we are going to write entire logic. If you want to use the concepts like try and catch, where you want to catch few errors and exceptions, then you can use the exception block. Hope if you have worked in a Java or C place, we have the try catch finally like that. Similarly, here you can implement using the declare, begin, end blocks, exception and end blocks. So here I'm not using that, just I'm trying to return whatever the strings that I pass as an input. It is going to concatenate these three strings and it is going to give us the output. It is going to return us as a output. Okay, let us execute this stored procedure. So here I am going to call the stored procedures using the call keyword, and I am going to pass three input strings as a parameters. Let us see. If you can see, the output has concatenated in the SQL language. This is the stored procedure that we have written in the SQL language, which got concatenated. This in SQL, these two symbols are going to these vertical pipes means it's you concatenate the strings. Okay, concatenate something. Here we are going to concatenate the strings. Okay, this is how I got the output. Okay, let us see. Let us see some stored procedures where some basic logic is implemented. Okay, here I am going to write my stored procedures in JavaScript. Let us create that. Here I am expecting the output as a double. Double is a floating point, right? You may be aware. If you are, it's not an integer, it could be a floating point dot zero like that. Okay. Yeah, give me a minute, please. 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. So in this, actually, we are writing the stored procedures in JavaScript. We are expecting the double. So what my requirement is, if you understand this, I'm written very basic logic here. If you see here, if my price, whatever the value that I pass as a parameter here, if my price is going to be 100, then just give a 10% discount. 10% discount means 0.1, right? Just multiply with 0.1 and return the price. If that is less than 100, we don't have any discount and just return 0. Okay, this is the basic. If these kind of logic we cannot implement using the SQL. So if the requirement is to perform any of the procedural logic, our requirement says you need to perform certain procedural logic, then there is no other option rather than using the stored procedures. Here in this example, our case, I have written the stored procedures using the JavaScript. Okay, let me execute this. So this got successfully. I am going to pass 120 as my value. You may pass n number of values, it will generate the results based on that. So 10% of 120 is going to be 12, right? For the 120, we are going to provide a discount of 12. Similarly, if I execute 80 as the price is less than 100, so it will evaluate. If it's not a price is not greater than 100, right? So it will return 0. That 0 got returned. So to work, hope you are able to understand, to work on the procedural logic, you need to have a awareness of branching and looping. What do you mean by branching? Means to use the conditions using the if else. These are the clauses that we need to use. You need to have the you need to have a knowledge on working branching and as well as the looping. How the looping means, how the for loop works. You need to have an idea what do you mean by for loop, how the for loop works. Okay, this is how we are going to write the different stored procedures. Let us see another stored procedures where we can perform DML and DDL operations. So my requirement here is, here I have a simple requirement just to create a simple table. Okay. So just I am writing this stored procedures, create or replace procedure, and my procedure name is going to be a create table. Okay. Create employee table and the return string. I am using the SQL as a language. Let us see how this works. My table got created successfully. Just I am executing the stored procedure. If you query this, we must not have any kind of records. Why? Because just we have created a table. Okay, this is the simple stored procedure to create one simple table. Okay, let us create another stored procedure where we have successfully created the table and our requirement is to insert the records. Instead of every time executing the insert statements, I want to create another one stored procedure where we can write the stored procedure. Okay, so here. This is the stored procedure that I have written to insert the records. Just I have named my stored procedure as the insert employee, and I have taken three parameters. Actually, we have three columns, right? So I have taken three columns, and if you can see here, we have the four blocks: exception and end. In the declare section, I am going to define my parameter, whatever the values variables that we are going to define, we can define in the declare section. Here I have defined one variable as a error message. If I want to, I'm going to handle exception here. If I notice any error, just throw error, whatever the error that you notice, just fetch the error and copy the error, return in the as a return, pass on to the error message, pass on to the user UI. Okay, this is how it will take insert into employee. Same similar syntax, whatever we perform inserting data, right? Insert into employee table, and these are the three columns. We are going to pass the values, right? Whatever the values that we pass here, it will come here. Okay, it will it will form a some SQL statement, and automatically this statement will get executed and data get inserted into our table. Okay, let me execute this stored procedure. Here I am calling the stored procedure with these values that I am passing. Employee, again I want to pass another record here. Now let us query the table. If you can see here, our stored procedures are created successfully. Once we call the stored procedure to insert the data, it successfully got inserted 2 records. Okay, this is how we are going to create the table. If you want this, the requirement is to perform any other DMLs, DDLs, then we will go for using the stored procedures. Let us write another stored procedure just to update another two. Let's say examples another two where we can update and delete the data. So this is the stored procedure to update the record. It's going to be very simple logic where we are going to write the stored procedure with the name update employee salary. Here I am writing in the SQL language and return type is string. So if you notice here, I am going to frame the syntax similar to our update statement. Okay, this is very similar syntax which we perform using the any updates that we want to update in any of the table. Okay, let me execute this stored procedures. Here I want to modify the salary for this where I mean to say ID equal to 101. As it there is no return here, so it got return null. We see here it got updated. Similarly, if you want to delete any record, then you can write the stored procedures with deleting one record. The data got deleted and we have only one record existence in the our table employee table. So hope everyone is able to understand. Just try to understand that what is the importance of writing the stored procedure. The importance of writing the stored procedures is if you want to perform any of the administrative task in the sense that if you want to delete any data whose data is going to be greater than 90 days, like that, these kind of administrative tasks, they delete the temporary tables which got created while transforming something. These kind of administrative tasks, if you want to perform, then you will go for the stored procedures. And stored procedures in Snowflake can be written in 5 different languages, either in Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala, and Snowflake scripting. Okay, I suggest you to start learning Python so that it will help you a lot over a longer period of time. This is how the stored procedures works. And whereas coming to the UDFs, UDFs are created to take certain values, process it, and generate certain output. In case of UDFs, output is going to be a mandatory. It is a function. Whereas it is going to be in stored procedure, it's a procedure to perform the administrative task. Okay, let us see few examples for the UDFs. So here I am going to create a function, create a replace function where it will take two values and it is going to add the two values. I need going to get the sum of two values. Okay, this is the pretty simple function and straightforward. It's the basic function where it will utilizing the JavaScript as a language. Okay, let me execute this. You are going to get the select sum. If you can notice the change, if you are going to call the stored procedure, then we are going to just use the command stall. It's going to be independent. You don't need to require, you don't need to have any kind of select statement to call the stored procedure. Whereas in case of UDF, you need to use the select and you need to you need to provide the function that you are going to execute. Okay, let us see another function to calculate the factorial value. Hope I mean to say this is going to be like teaching Java and Python. Don't feel like that, but you need to have a little knowledge on JavaScript to understand all these functions and all. Okay, let us execute this function factorial to calculate the factorial. This is how we are going to create the factorial. And if you call the factorial 3 factorial, everyone knows, right? 3 factorial is going to be 3 into 2 into 1. It's going to be a 6. Okay. This is how, even if you can write, this is the one of the function where you want to create the, where you want to get the message hello world in the different fields. So this is how the function, the main objective of function is to take the input of certain values and process it and provide the output as a certain value. The return type is going to be mandatory in case of UDF, but whereas in case of stored procedures, return type is not mandatory. If it doesn't return anything, it is going to return the null in stored procedures. But whereas in UDF, certainly there must have something as a return. Okay. Any doubts in case of, in I mean to say, understanding the stored procedures and UDFs? So we have few examples to discuss about the task and steps in real time. Actually, this I have taken from the one of the project which where I am where a friend is working. So actually, will try to discuss this task constraints in combination of task constraints stored process. This is the real time example where we have the our requirement is we have the stream side. Hope everyone is able to understand what you mean by stream. So here the require one of the requirement is the requirement says that we have a two tables and I have a destination table is going to be one table. On one table, we need to create the streams on two tables, and we need to continuously monitor the changes on those two tables. If any changes occur on any of the table, that changes need to be reflected in the destination table. So we are going to have the two source tables, ANSI bound and order confirmations. These are going to be two source tables, and we have one target table which is known as a EDI log. So we are going to create streams on these two tables, ANSI bound. This is a little bit PO lines and PO number. This is going to be actually from the ERP end. This is going, you need to have the functional knowledge as well to understand these kind of examples. So what I want to convey here is you may work in the any of the environment. I mean to say some people might work starting in the e-com environment. So they need to understand the functionality of how the e-com works. What do you mean by a order placing? How the user is going to place an order. So in terms, some people will be working in the insurance domain. So they need to have a little bit of functional knowledge as well. Once you get into the project, right, you are going to decide what is the project will have a certain domains. There few people will work in telecom domain. So they need to have a little exposure towards the telecom, and few people will work in the insurance domain. So they need to have a few exposure towards the insurance terminology. Few people will start working in the e-com, the retail. These are, and if you are lucky enough, you may work in the ERP environment. If you are going to work in the ERP, you will gain a lot of ERP knowledge. ERP is going to be, again, ERP, you may be aware, right? Enterprise resource planning. It will be holistically, it will be planned instead of planning individually. Holistically, it will get planned for the entire resource. If you are going to work in ERP domain, you are going to be lucky enough to gain the knowledge of ERP as well. You need to gain the functional knowledge on whatever the domain that you are going to choose. Okay. Functional knowledge is going to be it will give a lot of added advantage to work in the project. Here we are speaking about the ERP, and it has the PO line and PO lines. PO means purchase order. Hope it may be little sound little unfamiliar now. PO means purchase order, sales order. We have a lot of functionality like that. Here the requirement is we have a two tables and destination table. We need whatever the changes that had occurred in two tables. We are going to capture those changes and we are going to load into the ETL log. So that we need to have the two tables. ASI bound is going to be one of the source table, and order confirmations is going to be one of the source table. On these source tables, we need to have the destination table as well. EDI log is going to be a destination table. First, we need to have the tables. After once the three tables got created, we are going to create the streams on these two tables, source tables. It is going to be a NSI bound. NSI bound is one of the source table, and order confirmation is another source table. On these source tables, we are going to create the streams. And based on these streams object, whatever the changes that had occurring or happening in these two tables, we are going to make the EDI as a destination table using the merge logic. If you can see here, this is the merge logic. Using this merge logic, yesterday we have discussed it, right? Using the merge logic, either it is a update, we are going to update the record. If it is an insert, we are going to insert the record. But the difference here is, here we are going to use the two tables as our stream objects instead of one. That is the difference. In reality, you may have the many to one relation stream objects, one to one stream objects. We never know. Based on the requirement, we need to work, we need to act and work accordingly. Okay. In reality, I mean to say in real time, the requirements will get changed, and we need to be in a position that we need to identify what do you mean by source table and what is the destination table. On which source tables we need to apply a stream. We need to try to process the internal logic as well in order to understand the streams and tasks. Okay. Hope everyone is able to follow me. This is going to be one of the requirement in real time where we are not, we raise a requirement where you need to work on the applying streams on a multiple tables as well. Do not panic in that scenario or situation. Okay. Any doubts so far in terms of stored procedures and user defined function? Okay. If there is no doubts, let's stop today's session. And tomorrow we don't have any session. Let's meet on Monday. Okay. In case any doubts, you can text me. I will reply you back. Thank you all. Good day ahead.